Candy with Eyes2Jesus.blogspot.com, and welcome to Thanksgiving with Eyes2Jesus 2020. So, as my tradition is, I do a Thanksgiving video every year sharing my family's Thanksgiving with you. And we always have 2 days. So this is Wednesday, and then tomorrow, of course, is Thanksgiving. And I spent all day Wednesday preparing for Thanksgiving, so I think this is an important part to film. It'll especially help give you some ideas if you host and you're looking for some ideas. I almost always host, so I have a lot of preparations to do. And today has been busy because a few extra things have come up that I needed to handle. So in the first part of the day, I needed to drive into the city and run a few errands. That's done and handled. I'm glad to be back home. And I just finished getting the house all ready for tomorrow. So now I'm getting started on pre-cooking some of the stuff for our feast. Now what I'm starting with right now is sweet potato casserole. And if you watch all my Thanksgiving videos, you know that's pretty much always what I start with. So I have 4 sweet potatoes about this size, and I am going to peel them and then chop them up. So let's get started. So they are now all peeled. So now on my counter here, I am just rinsing them and then coarsely chopping them into just a couple inch pieces, and then popping them into the pot behind me, where I have a Dutch oven pot with water that is about to boil. So I'm just going to chop all these up, and then I'm going to boil them until they're nice and soft. Now while I have the sweet potatoes boiling here behind me and cooking, I'm now going to get started on the pumpkin pie. So I'm going to use my mixer to mix this all together, thus my mixing bowl, but this can totally be mixed by hand. So to make pumpkin pie, which I hate pumpkin pie, I hate the flavor of pumpkin, but I have family who loves the flavor of pumpkin and loves pumpkin pie, so I make it for them. And it's a really fun pie to make. So this is how I make pumpkin pie. I start with a 1 15-ounce can of 100% pure pumpkin. So we got pureed pumpkin. So let's pop that into my mixer bowl. And to that, let's add 1 cup of evaporated milk. And 2 eggs. And give my hands a rinse. And before I continue, I am just going to grab a spoon and I'm going to break these egg yolks up. That'll just make it easier to mix in a little bit. Alright, and then to that we're going to add about 1 tablespoon of soft butter. And then you want a 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves. Oh, I love cloves. It's one of my most favorite smells ever. And then we want 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon and 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. And then to all this deliciousness, we have got to add white sugar. So you're going to do a 1/2 cup of white sugar. And now the magic part, we're going to add a 1/2 cup of white flour. And this is going to enable this pumpkin pie to make its own crusts. So we will not need to make a crust or use a store-bought pie shell. Now I'm just going to pop this into my handy-dandy 6-quart heavy-duty KitchenAid mixer. I love this thing. And just get it all mixed together with the paddle attachment. Alright, so I got the pumpkin pie stuff all mixed together in my bowl. I buttered a pie pan. So now, remember this makes its own crust, so I can now just pour this directly into the pie pan. Now I'm going to set this to the side because my sweet potatoes are just about done cooking. So this is going to go to the side, and I'll work on this some more later because now I need to get back to work on my sweet potato casserole. So I have my pumpkin pie set to the side, waiting to bake in a little bit. Meanwhile, since my sweet potatoes are done, I'm working more on the sweet potato casserole. So in my mixer, I just popped in the sweet potatoes, and I used the paddle attachment again to get it all mashed up and mixed together well. So of course I cleaned the pumpkin out of the bowl and off of the paddle first because I don't want any pumpkin flavor in my sweet potato casserole. Now, to this steaming hot bowl of sweet potato yumminess, let's add some more ingredients. So we're going to start with 1 cup of white sugar. That wasn't quite a cup's worth, so I'm just going to get a little bit more to even it out. There we go. And then a 1/2 cup of milk. I suggest whole milk. And then about a 1/3 stick of soft butter. You want a 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt. I'm using pink sea salt. 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. And 2 beaten eggs. Now I'm going to get this mixing again to get all this mixed together well. I got the sweet potato mixture all mixed together, and I popped it into a buttered 13x9 baking pan. So next, I'm going to do the toppings. I don't measure this, I just kind of eyeball it. So take your clean hands, and you want to just start sprinkling on some brown sugar on the top. And I just put on just a thin layer that looks good. You know, if you love brown sugar, then you might want to put on a lot. Otherwise, you know, just a little thin layer. And then after you have the amount of brown sugar on top that you like, it is time for mini marshmallows. I already have this bag open. This is a big bag, so I am definitely not going to be using it all. But if you have the smaller bags, generally about the whole bag will fit. So I'm just going to, again, eyeball it for what looks good and what we tend to like. And so I have some marshmallows left over, and my kids, frankly, are probably going to be munching on these today. I never keep marshmallows in the house, except if I'm doing something that requires them, like the sweet potato casserole. So when we do actually have marshmallows in the house left over, the kids consider that a treat. So I'll probably let the kids all share this and finish off the marshmallows. So now this is going to get moved to the side next to my pumpkin pie. And the next thing I'm going to get started on is a coconut custard pie. So I have the sweet potato casserole and the pumpkin pie off to the side for now while I get to work on a coconut custard pie. This is one of my very favorite pies. So I just again rinsed out my mixing bowl, and I'm going to start by putting in 2 cups of whole milk. And to that we're going to add the magic, which is a 1/2 cup of white flour, because just like the pumpkin pie, this coconut custard pie is also going to make its own crust as it bakes. And then 1 cup of white sugar, 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract, 4 eggs, and you want about a 1/2 stick of butter. And then we're going to do about a handful of shredded coconut, sweetened or unsweetened, whatever you got. Now I'm going to get all this mixed together in my mixer. I got the coconut custard pie all mixed together in my mixer. I popped it into a buttered pie pan. So now I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees, and I have a nice big oven, so I'm going to get all 3 of these baking at once, because the sweet potato casserole, the pumpkin pie, and the coconut custard pie all bake at 350 degrees. I will be taking the sweet potato casserole out at the 30-minute mark, And then these two pies will bake for at least 50 minutes, and then I will check them and see if they're done, and then they'll come out when they're ready. While the sweet potato and the two pies are baking in the oven, this is a perfect time to get started on the cranberry cobbler. So in this square 8x8 baking dish, I just buttered it. And now I'm going to pop in about 3.5 cups of fresh cranberries. And I have them all rinsed and clean. And then on top of these cranberries, I'm going to put in 3/4 cup of sugar. I'm just going to sprinkle it on 1/4 cup at a time. And on top of this beautiful snowy looking mixture, I'm now going to sprinkle on a 1/2 cup of chopped or slivered nuts. You can use nuts of your choice. I like almonds, so I'm going to do a 1/2 cup of slivered almonds. Now I'm going to set this to the side and again grab my, once again, rinsed mixing bowl and start putting the ingredients in here for the batter. Well, good timing. My husband just got home from work early. He's got the next few days off, and he and a friend are putting a second refrigerator in the garage. So if you hear some noises, that's because the garage door is right over here to my side off the kitchen. And I'm going to need that because it's been very hard trying to fit Thanksgiving and New Year's and special feasts and gatherings all into one fridge and still have our regular food. So it's going to be awesome to have a second fridge again. It's been a few years since we've had a second fridge. So it'll be nice to have one here in the kitchen and one in the garage. So in my KitchenAid mixer, I just beat 2 eggs, and I just beat them until they got kind of fluffy, and they're not separated, so they're not going to whip up too much. But you want to get them just kind of fluffy. And I'm just going to get my mixer going on a low speed, and while that's mixing, I'm going to gradually put in 3/4 cup of white sugar, 3/4 cup of white flour, and 1 whole stick of butter. And then I'm going to get that all mixed together in my mixer, and that will give us the batter for the cobbler. I just finished getting this all mixed together in the mixer, and it comes out as a very thick but smooth yellow batter. So I am just going to kind of just clump this on top. You can spread it on top if you would like. It's a little tricky to spread, but in my experience it works good either way, whether you just plop it on top in various spots or spread it. It all spreads out as it cooks because, you know, there's a whole 1/2 cup of butter, 1 stick of butter in here, so that's going to make it spread as the butter melts. And the sweet potato casserole has come out of the oven. The 2 pies are still baking. So in place of the sweet potato casserole, I put in the cranberry cobbler. And the cranberry cobbler is going to go in there for about 45 to 50 minutes. So while the 2 pies are continuing to bake and the cranberry cobbler is baking, I'm getting started on broccoli marinade. So I just now chopped up 3 heads, roughly this size, of fresh broccoli and popped the floured parts of them into my big bowl. And then I diced a 1/2 an onion, and I used whatever onions I have. This year I have white, so I have diced up 1/2 of a white onion in there. And then I just cut up some cooked bacon, and just this much, about 2 large handfuls of cooked bacon all cut up. So now I'm going to add that to this. And now I'm going to just get a fresh spoon and give this a mix. And then after this is nicely mixed together, I'm going to set this to the side and get out a smaller bowl to make the marinade portion of the broccoli marinade. Now out on the counter I have coconut custard pie cooling, the pumpkin pie cooling, and then of course the sweet potato casserole that's been out for a while. And in my bowl here is the broccoli marinade mixture that I've been working on, and in this bowl it is time to make the marinade for the broccoli marinade. I started by putting in 2 cups of real mayonnaise. Now, to those 2 cups, I'm going to pour in 3 tablespoons of pure raw apple cider vinegar. And then to that, I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of white sugar. Now I'm going to get this all mixed together. And once it's well mixed together, you kind of have this, you get this yellowish tinge, very creamy marinade here, and that's what we're looking for. So now I'm going to get my nice big bowl with the broccoli mixture, and I'm just going to scrape all of this in, and then I'm going to mix this all together. And then after that, this goes into the fridge where it will marinate overnight to be perfect for tomorrow's feast. The cranberry cobbler just came out of the oven, so I just set it here on the edge of the counter to cool. And I turned off the oven because that's all of the baking work that I need to do today. The oven will be in use again tomorrow. So now the rest of my food work tonight is all going to be done on stovetop. So that's awesome. So no more hot oven for the rest of today. So now I am working on the stuffing. So I just toasted 12 slices of just basic white bread. And now I'm using my bread knife and I'm gently cutting the toast into cubes. I just diced up one whole onion, and I used white because that's the type of onions I have. And then I just chopped up 4 stalks of celery. And then I put them in this pot back here, and I also popped in 1 whole stick of butter. And then I just have those all cooking together, and I sauteed those veggies in the butter. And that just finished, so now I just have it sitting there off. And while that cools just for a moment, I'm returning back to the cubed toast to continue on this part of the dressing. So we're going to start with 1½ teaspoons of salt, and I'm using pink sea salt, and this is a 1/2 teaspoon measurement, so I'm going to do 3½ teaspoons. Then we're going to do a 1/2 teaspoon of ground black pepper. And then 1 teaspoon of ground sage, so that'll be 2½ teaspoons. And then we're going to do a 1/2 teaspoon of thyme leaves. Oh wow, these smell so good. That's going to be really good. Now I'm just going to grab a clean spoon and get these all mixed together. And I'm just going to mix it gently so I don't squish down the cubed toast. So I got the seasonings just very gently mixed into the cubed toast. So now it's time to add the wet ingredients. So now onto the stick of butter that was melted and the celery and onions that were sauteed in it. And I'm just going to pop that right on top. And this is such a simple bread dressing to make, but it's my favorite. It comes out fabulous every single time. It's really, really good. Now, I am going to very slowly and gently mix it, just kind of fold the wet ingredients into the dry. You don't want to mix this vigorously, or you're going to just end up with a clump of dough because it'll just make your toast cubes all soggy. So you just kind of fold it in and you mix it slowly and take your time, and it is well worth it to take your time on mixing this in. And then after this, the dressing will be ready to be covered over and put into the fridge to await tomorrow's feast. And now I am up to making tomorrow morning's Thanksgiving breakfast. And like last year, I'm going to make some homemade butterscotch pudding again. But this time I have enough cow's milk, so I'm not going to have to get creative and substitute almond milk to make this. So in my pot here, I just put in 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, an 1/8 teaspoon of pink sea salt, and 2/3 cup of brown sugar. Mix it all together. Now I'm going to get this onto some medium to high heat, and I'm going to gradually stir in 2 cups of whole milk. And then I'm going to bring that to a boil. Then I'm going to lower the boil a bit, but keep it bubbling, and then stir it constantly for about 1 minute until this thickens. So after the 1 minute of stirring that mixture while it was boiling, I temporarily removed it to the heat, and I just quickly separated 2 eggs, so I had 2 egg yolks in a bowl. And then I took some of the hot mixture, just a bit, and mixed it into the egg yolks to temper the egg yolks so that it wouldn't just cook or scramble eggs. And then I put a little bit more of the hot mixture into the egg yolks until the egg yolks were slowly brought up to a hot temperature. And then I poured the egg yolk mixture back into the main pot here. And then I went and got that to a boiling, and I boiled it and stirred it constantly for another minute. And then I removed this from the heat, where I put in 2 tablespoons of butter and 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. And now I am just dishing this out into 6 glass containers. And then each one will get a lid, and then these will go into the refrigerator, and it will be tomorrow morning's breakfast. And that is all the cooking and baking that I am doing today. The rest of the food work will be done tomorrow. We will work on the turkey a bit tonight. My husband will, and then he'll get that going probably really early in the morning in the roaster. So he handles the turkey and marinating it and cooking it and all of that fun stuff. And then all the other food I will be handling tomorrow for the feast. Now it is time to clean the kitchen. Happy Thanksgiving. Here we are on Thursday, and we just did our annual family pictures, and my husband is tweaking the turkey, and then we're going to move on to present unwrapping.
All right, this is the crock pot baster type turkey. In the turkey bag with the marinade and in water that's just at boiling point. And you go for many hours, so you don't have to worry about drying the turkey out with this system.
find his
Little
grandson.
boy.
Aw. Oh.
He might be FE, like me.
Maybe.